What are declarative rules? In declarative rules, we saw what are declare expressions all about, and we understood how exactly we can create declare expression to track a property, and based on one property how exactly the other property gets calculated. Also, something which we understood was how exactly you can utilize that to build a UI. For example, based on that based on the input of two properties, the source and the target property was getting modified, right? We saw that, we understood that. Yes or no? Right, perfect. So today we'll be taking one step further, and we'll be understanding a new rule which is called as declare constraints. Declare constraints also is a very interesting rule, also important in designing your user interface. How exactly we will be using it is something we will understand. So today's rule is called declare constraint. Hmm. Declare constraint is today's rule. Let's try to understand what is a constraint. If you just look at it from the word itself, constraint is something, is like a restriction or a validation. The generic meaning of constraint is condition or some constraints you have. For example, your mom will say if you have to go out and play, there is a constraint, you have to complete your homework before going outside and playing. That's a condition or a constraint on you. Yes or no? Also, there is one more constraint: before 6 o'clock you should come back. All these are constraints. These rules or these conditions which they are putting on you are constraints. That should be our understanding with constraints. So declare constraint is also pretty similar to that. This rule will be used pretty much to perform validations based on one property. you know the whenever that For the target property we will be performing validations. This is primarily used to validate a property, could be any property. Some examples could be, you know to say, for example, if the age is less than 21, then show them a message that you are not eligible to drive or rent this vehicle. If the age is less than 18, show them that they are not eligible to drink. These are rules or constraints. Do we agree? Yes or no? Right? Declare constraints are nothing but uh, it's also a decision category rule. It's a decision category rule where you know rule used to validate property. Validation is nothing but these are rules used to validate whether a certain condition is met. This will uh, restrict restrict or validate a property. That's what this will do based on another property. Based on another property. This also runs on forward chaining. This rule also follows forward chaining. What is forward chaining? We saw that yesterday, right? Based on input properties change, the output property was changing. That is forward chaining. Let us try to see how exactly we can do that. So we can try to implement couple of changes today. What we'll try to do is, for example, if the first name and last name are same, I want to validate and throw a error message. This is what I want to do. If this runs fine, I want to implement additional conditions also. Using one constraint, you can build multiple validations. We'll see how we can do it To do that, first let us see which category does this roll up under. Where can I find declare constraints? Under which category? Decision category. Under decision category, I do have something called as constraints. In earlier versions, it was called as declare constraints. Here, you can see under decision, there is something called as constraints. This is the declare constraint. All you can also do is open any of such constraints and verify what is the PXOBJ class. Everyone able to see my screen, right? Okay, perfect. So let's try to verify what is the PXOBJ class. Go to view XML on the rule. Control F. PXOBJ. Rule declare constraint. Does it make sense, guys? Rule declare constraint is the PXOBJ class to which every instance of declare constraint belongs to. Belongs to rule declare constraints. So let's try to go ahead and try to implement our constraint message which we are trying to show. What is it? Whenever the first name and last name are same, for example, my name can't be Abdul, you want to validate that. You don't want to save such stuff in database because all that is junk data. You don't want junk data. To stop that, you should have a validation there. How can you do that? You can use declare constraints to do that. I can't, my name can't be Vishwas and again Vishwas. Could be Vishwas Nayak, Vishwas Kumar, like that. Let us see how we can do that. Okay, so I came to decisioning category, or the best way is go to your work class, right? Go to your work class, right click on your work class, or on the decisioning category. You should have a decisioning category because we created a declare expression yesterday. Yes or no? You can right click on this decisioning category and say create and choose constraints. Exactly similar for all the rules we have been following. This should be something which you should be knowing by this time. Let's create a declare constraint. Right click on decisioning category, create and click on constraint. Here, call this something. Okay. So we are validating name. So let me call it something like ABC constraints. Okay. Because I'm trying to validate a name, part of auto insurance application. And if you see, the form which gets loaded when you try to create a constraint rule is, a tab which has constraints, pages and class specification, history. Don't worry about that. Constraints. Here, if you see there is a when rule, you can use a when rule, requires that, and else add a message is what it is telling. So let us see what we can add here. So what we want to do here is compare if the first name and last name are same. Yes or no? Yes or no, guys? What is my first name property? F name. F name. See, this is my first name. What I'm saying here is when first name is equal to, right? Whenever it is equal to, that is when I have a issue. When Abdul is equal to Abdul, I have a issue. I don't want that. Whenever I see such thing, I want to do something, right? It is required whenever the first name is equal to last name, it is required that the first name should not be equal to last name. Yes or no? That is the condition we want to restrict. When you have not completed the homework, you are not supposed to go to play. When the first name is equal to last name, it is required that first name should not be equal to last name. You are stopping this. This shouldn't happen. The first name can't be equal to last name because it is required. You are putting a precondition here. Boss, I can't have that. I can't have same name. I don't want to save that junk data in my database. I want proper name there. That's what we are seeing here. But once you figured that out, you have to tell that also to the user. You have to tell that to the user. First name and last name must be different. You can actually put a text message here, or you can create a message rule. How can we do that? We'll see that also. We can add the message here manually, or you can create a message rule. How can we create a message rule? See, for example, this is the error message I want to show. It's a string error. So if you right click on technical category, there is a rule called message rule. Can I find that? Yes. Are we able to see that? When we are trying to create declare constraints, we want to display certain messages, but the text can be too big. And this is a very small field to show all that data. And it is not also a good practice because you are hard coding data inside this rule. So it is always better to create a message rule. What is that message rule? That message rule will hold that particular text, whatever text error message you want to show. That is why we can use that. To do that, that message rule is part of technical category. So what I am doing, I'm right clicking on technical category and I want to create that message rule. Right click on technical create and then choose message. And let me call that, let us say it's error message, string error. Okay. Once you're done, say create. Here you will get some categories to choose. So this is an error type of category. So we can choose that. Let it load. See, as soon as this message form loaded, you will see that it has multiple classifications: error, warning, alert, or tip. What do you want to do? I want to show error. I want to show error. And classification is also something easy to understand. Depends on resource where, insufficient security, invalid inputs. These inputs are invalid, yes or no? First name, last name being same is an invalid input. Do we agree? Right? I can choose that. All we have created so far is a constraint rule, which we are still completing. In that, we are validating the first name and last name. And to show the message there, we are creating a message rule. And inside that message rule, I'm choosing the category to which this message belongs. It's the error message I'm showing when we have invalid inputs. What is the message I want to say? Show last name and first name must be different. I don't want it to be same. That's it. All we have done is created this message. Save this. So this got saved as string error. Now what you can do, go back to your declare constraint. You don't have to put this. Am I able to look up for my message rule, error message rule? Yes or no, guys? Right, perfect. String error. Save. This error should be shown on top of what? For example, this is first name. After you provide, only then you will go and provide the last name. When you provide the same last name also as the first name, only then this error should come. At the first name, it won't know, the system won't know what will be your last name. Only when you provide the last name, the system will know, oh, this guy has given the first name and last name as same. Yes or no? That is why the error message should show on the last name, because only when the system understands what is your last name, then it will know, okay, oh, first name and last name are same here. That is why you have to give your error message here, and then the property on top of which this validation has to be triggered. Does it make sense? Perfect. Let us save this. Okay, and let's try to create a case and see what exactly happens. So to get my case, I will have to expand this guy. customer flow, actions, run. So this should give the first name, last name page. Okay, here let me give something to validate it. Okay, and then let's try to hit submit. Are we able to get that, guys? Are we able to understand how declare trigger is working? Also, what we have said is not just one validation. You can add multiple validations to that constraint rule. Your mom can tell, yes, you have to complete your homework before you go to play. Also, you should be coming back before 6. These two conditions she can tell. Let's try to implement something similar. Now we understood declare constraint is a rule. It's going to put a constraint on a property. It's validating actually, right? It's validating if the two names are same. Yes or no? Is it validating? Perfect. So we understand what is declare expression, what is declare constraint is something we have understood right now. Very good. So, but with this declare constraint, you can add multiple conditions also, not just one particular property you can check, but you can also check other properties also. What other things can we check? Let us say, let's go back to our UI. If the gender is male, let us say, and if the age is 21, we can show some error. If less than 21, if the age is less than 21, we can, and if he is a male, we can show error for age property is minor or something like that. And for female, we can say if she is 18, and if her age is 18, and if the person is female, then we can show error, oh, this is a minor. We can show something like that. Let's try to see if we can implement something like that. To do that, first let us try to see what is the type of this particular property, which is our age, no, gender. Let's try to see what is gender property all about. We will need some prompting. Let me open gender. Male and female. So instead of local list, I want to validate against the code. So I will change something here. So I do have a local list here, right? And local list I have male and female. I will do it something like a prompt list. And in prompt list, you can give code and value. M is for male, male. F is for female, female. Very small change. Instead of having this entire text, I am holding that against these codes. We have seen how we can use these codes before also. Very simple, just modifying that property to support M and F through standard values, and on the UI show us male and female. Make sense, guys? Okay, perfect. So now what do I want to do? I want to validate if this particular person is, that age must be 21, for minimum age for insurance is 21. So I can do that. I'm opening the same constraint rule and see how I can add additional constraints. This is one constraint for one property. See, for first name, last name, I validated this. So now, for example, if I want to add one more, I can just click on plus and I can keep adding as many constraints as I want. One rule, but doing so much job. See, dot gender, let us say, when dot gender is equal to m male, it is required that dot age, what should be age, should be greater than 21. greater than or equal to 21. At least 21 it should be. Can I use these operators and set that? See, when the gender is male, I want the age must be at least 21 or above. If it is not, what is the error message I have to show? Age must be 21. But this is only for who? This is only for males. Sorry, for males, right? For males, we are doing this, and this has to be triggered on age property. Okay. So all we are saying here is gender. If the gender is male, the age has to be greater than 21 or 21 at least. If not, we want to show this age must be 21. Similarly, for female, dot gender, if it is F, it is required that age has to be minimum 18 or more. Age must be 18. The property is age. On age, we want to do this. Does it make sense, guys? How we can add additional constraints? Yes, no. Very important. Perfect. So, going back, you will have to modify this section to make it look better because the age and gender have to be interchanged. Let me open the section. See, modifying an existing section. You have to just go and modify it. So, if you see, stacked left, all I want to do is I want to move it above. Gender, age, perfect. Save this. Perfect. So now, if you see in this thing, it is showing like this. I think the refresh should give us a new thing. So, see how the gender came up and age went down? On the same work object, we can see those changes. Yes or no? Perfect. So, Vishwas, email, let us leave it blank. I'll say 18. Just try to submit this. Does it make sense, guys? Are we able to establish multiple property validation using declare constraints? Are we able to do that? Does it make sense, guys? Is declare constraints understood? This is also built on forward chaining. All we did was we understood there is a rule called declare constraints. We opened the declare constraints rule, saw what exactly does it have to do with property validation? We understood that we can do validations. We created a declare constraint rule. First thing we wanted to do was, hey, can you validate if the first name and last name are same? Yes, Pega can do that. In this rule, you can specify if the first name is equal to last name, then it is required that it has to be different. First name cannot be same as last name. If it is true, please show them this error message. Tell them this is not done. And on what property do I have to show this message? On the last name. Is that being achieved here, guys? Also, I also said that, okay, in a constraint rule, you can add multiple constraints. The kid has to complete his homework. Also, when he goes to play, he has to come back by 6. He can't go further than that. Same thing we are achieving here. First name, we validated first name and last name. Then we are seeing gender must be minimum 21. If he is lower than 21, the insurance company is not willing to give them insurance. It doesn't believe that guys below 21 will be driving safe, so no point of giving insurance to them. Same thing is true for females. Females who are below 18, not worth it. Don't want to give insurance to such females. This company very strict. Yes or no? See, you are seeing that particular message here. Age must be 18 for female. However, for male, you are seeing age must be 21. Yes or no? Also, something we understood was in this rule, you can specify a message. If the message is too big, you can create a message rule under technical category. Under technical category, you can create a message rule called string error, in which you can add what is that message you want to display. You can add whatever you want here. It has different categorization. You can categorize, is that an error? Is that a warning? Is that an alert, a tip, whatever it is. Two rules were introduced to you today, a message rule as well as a declare constraint rule, and how exactly you can stitch it with the user interface so that the validation can be triggered based on the change on these values. You know, it is being, it is showing you a validation rule. Yes or no, guys? Is this understood? Perfect. And this also follows forward chaining and is instance of rule declare constraint class. Does it make sense? Yes. Yes. So right now the use case which we have seen, we are very clear that okay, here we can use declare constraints. Yes or no? Validation could be, for example, the first name is required. Let us say this has to be present there. You can't get a form where the first name is blank. Can you? No. So for such basic validations, you can use the validation which comes with field. If you see, this field has a required button. This is a basic validation which you can use always. If you tell, you will get a star mark there telling that, oh, this is required. You can't keep this blank at all. See this? This is some basic validation. There are other validations also. Right now, we have not entered that class. We do have classes where we will be doing that. We will be seeing validate rules. There is validate, obj validate, edit validate. In those classes, I will explain you why exactly we will be using those. Where you have complex validations to be performed. At that time, we will be using this. This sort of constraint validation is driven by property values. For example, what all you are doing here is if these properties are same, then you are using this particular error message which has to be shown on top of this property. You can do property set using activity as well as data transform. Yes or no? In the same way, depending upon how your application is being designed, that is a design level question. What rule should be using? Once we cover all the rules, you will be getting an understanding when exactly you will be using which rule. Right now, the understanding should be, as part of declarative rules, we do have declare expressions, we do have declare constraints which we can use. Does it make sense, guys? Perfect. I want to start another new topic, but I think I'll be running out of time, so I will keep it to this thing so that you guys can also practice this and take this further. If you guys have any questions, I can take them.